On Rye, Chapter 26. My mother went to her low-paying job each morning. My father, who didn't have a job, left each morning too. Although most of the neighbors were unemployed, he didn't want them to think he was jobless, so he got into his car each morning at the same time and drove off as if he were going to work. And in the evening he would return at exactly the same time. It was good for me because I had the place to myself. They locked the house, but I knew how to get in. I would unhook the screen door with a piece of cardboard. They locked the porch door with a key from the inside. I slid a newspaper in the door and poked the key out. Then I pulled the newspaper in front of the door and the key came with it. I'd unlock the door and go in. When I left, I would hook the screen door, lock the back porch door from the inside, leaving the key in. Then I'd leave the front door, putting the latch on lock. I like being alone. One day I was playing one of my games. There was a clock in the mantel with a second hand, and I held contests to see how long I could hold my breath. Each time I did it, I exceeded my own record. I went through much agony, but I was proud each time I added some seconds to my record. This day, out of a full 5 seconds, I was standing getting my breath back when I walked to the front window. It was a large window covered by red drapes. There was a crack between the drapes, and I looked out. Jesus Christ! Our window was directly across from the front porch of the Andersons' house. Mrs. Anderson was sitting on the steps, and I could look right up her dress. She was about 23 and had marvelously shaped legs. I could see almost all the way up her dress. Then I remembered my father's army binoculars. They were on the top shelf of his closet. I ran and got them, ran back, crouched down, and adjusted them to Mrs. Anderson's legs. Took me right up there, and it was different from looking at Miss Gredis's legs. You didn't have to pretend you weren't looking. You could concentrate, and I did. I was right there. I was red hot. Jesus Christ, what legs, what flanks. And each time she moved, it was unbearable and unbelievable. Got down my knees, and I held the binoculars with one hand and pulled my cock out with the other. Spit my palm and began. For a moment I thought I saw a flash of panties. I was about to come. I stopped. I kept looking at the binocs, and then I started rubbing again. I was about to come, I stopped again. Then I waited and began rubbing again. This time I knew I wouldn't be able to stop. She was right there. I was looking right up her. It was like fucking. I came. Spurted it all over the hardwood floor in front of the window. It was white and thick. I got up and went to the bathroom and got some toilet paper, came back and wiped it up. Took it back to the toilet and flushed it away. Mrs. Anderson came and sat on those steps almost every day, and each time she did, I got the binocs and whacked off. If Mr. Anderson ever finds out about this, I thought, he'll kill me. My parents went to the movies every Wednesday night. The theater had drawings for money, and they wanted to win some money. It was on a Wednesday night that I discovered something. The Perazzi's lived in a house south of ours. Our driveway ran along the north side of their house, and there was a window which looked into their front room. The window was veiled by a thin curtain. There was a wall which became an arch over the front of our driveway, and there were bushes all about. When I got between that wall and the window, in among all those bushes, nobody could see me from the street, especially at night. I crawled in there. It was great, better than I expected. Mrs. Perazzi was sitting on the couch reading a newspaper. Her legs were crossed, and in an easy chair across the room, Mr. Perazzi was reading a newspaper. Mrs. Perazzi was not as young as Miss Gredis or Mrs. Anderson, but she had good legs, and she had on high heels, and almost every time she turned a page of her newspaper, she'd cross her legs, and her skirt would climb higher, and I would see more. My parents came home from the movie and catch me here. I thought that my life is over, but it's worth it. It's worth the risk. I stayed very quiet behind the window and stared at Mrs. Perazzi's legs. They had a large collie, Jeff, who was asleep in front of the door. I looked at Mrs. Gredis's legs that day in English class, and then I whacked off to Mrs. Anderson's legs, and now there was more. Why did Mr. Perazzi look at Mrs. Perazzi's legs? He just kept reading his newspaper. It was obvious that Mrs. Perazzi was trying to tease him because her skirt kept climbing higher and higher. Then she turned her page and crossed her legs very fast, and her skirt flipped back, exposing her pure white thighs. She was just like buttermilk. Unbelievable. She was the best of all. Then, from the corner of my eye, I saw Mr. Perazzi's legs move. He stood up very quickly and moved toward the front door. I started running, crashing through the bushes. I heard him open his front door. Down the driveway into our backyard behind the garage. I stood a moment listening. Then I climbed the back fence, over the vines, and on over into the next backyard. I ran through the yard and up the driveway, and I began dog-trotting south down the street like a guy practicing for track. There was nobody behind me, but I kept trotting. If he knows it was me, if he tells my father, I'm dead. But maybe he just let the dog out to take a shit. I trotted down to West Adams Boulevard and sat in a streetcar bench. Sat there 5 minutes or so, then I walked back home. When I got there, my parents were back yet. Went inside, undressed, turned out the lights, and waited for morning. Another Wednesday night, Baldy and I were taking our usual shortcut between two apartment houses. We were on our way to his father's wine cellar when Baldy stopped at a window. The shade was almost down, but not quite. Baldy stopped, bent, and peeked inside. He waved me over. "What is it?" I whispered. "Look." There was a man and a woman in bed, naked. There was just a bed sheet partly over them. The man was trying to kiss the woman, and she was pushing him away. "God damn it, let me have it, Marie." "No, but I'm hot, please. Take your goddamn hands off me." "But Marie, I love you. You and your fucking love." "Marie, please, will you shut up?" The man turned toward the wall. One picked up a magazine, bunched a pillow behind her head, and began reading it. Baldy and I walked away from the window. Jesus, said Baldy, that made me sick. I thought we were going to see something, I said. When we got to the wine cellar, Baldy's old man had put a big padlock on the cellar door. We tried that window again and again, but we never actually saw anything happen. It was always the same. Maria, it's been a long time. We're living together, you know. We're married. Big fucking deal. Just this once, Maria, and I won't bother you again. I won't bother you for a long time, I promise. Shut up. You make me sick. Baldy and I walked away. Shit, I said. Shit, he said. I don't think he's got a cock, I said. You might as well not have, said Baldy. We stopped going back there.